Okay, hi everyone. This is Ning and this is Shanna, my
Hi.
friend. Like we mentioned earlier about sort of interview-wise, the first question, self-introduction, or when interviewer asks you, "Hey, tell me about yourself," what are you gonna say? So we mentioned the WAP statement and the purpose and what's the best way to go introduce yourself. Now we're just gonna further explain a little bit more in terms of what's the best way to go about it, right? So we mentioned, hey, what about if the interviewer is, or if the employer who's interviewing you is perhaps your direct supervisor? Or what if the case when it's actually the HR manager who don't actually have a whole lot of like technical terminologies in their mind, right? So I think it's extremely crucial before you go into the interview to be very clear and ask, if you don't, ask them. So who exactly is interviewing me and how many
Right.
person and how long will it take, right? So that you will have a very clear visualization. Nothing will go unexpected. You know exactly when you go in there, you know it's like probably a panel interview where there's multiple people, then you prepare multiple resumes, or and also when people sometimes ask, it's like, oh, if it's panel interview, multiple people, who are you gonna look at, right? Because it's confusing. It's like, so I recommend if it's, for example, A, B, and C, B is a person asking you the question, you can just go ahead and stare at that person when that person speaks, and then when it's your turn to answer, it will be very polite when you start off looking at B, but also glance through A and C just while you speak, just like like a normal conversation. You don't want to ignore those people, but also you don't want to focus too much because
That's
it's
true.
obviously B who's very interested in this particular question.
Yeah.
So that would be in terms of the panel interviews. But what if, like, say it's an HR person who honestly don't have any idea like what exactly is like these whatever job, I don't know what kind of job you're looking for.
Yeah.
But I'm sure people out there, if it's like HR professional, they don't necessarily know like all the terminologies or technical terms, or especially if you're engineer or things like that.
Yeah.
Please don't worry and don't need to say a whole lot about like say Java or that particular language, because
Right.
they won't get it and there's no point. So I
But
think
there's still a need to mention it because that's
Absolutely.
your expertise. Although they not know like what that entails, but they can see you're very professional and you do have
Absolutely.
the skills they're asking for.
That's a very good point, Shanna.
Yeah.
Exactly. So please do indeed still include some. Just make sure it's not elaboratively talking, especially if it's only within 2 minutes. Remember, that's your self-introduction piece.
Right.
Don't go over 3 minutes. And if
Yeah.
it's only 3 minutes,
Right.
just briefly mention it, like Shanna mentioned. Just say a few pointers, and if you sense the other person looks interested or they actually ask you further, like, oh, can you elaborate or can you explain more, then you can please go ahead and go further. Or else,
I have a question.
Please.
So like I feel like I shouldn't feel compelled to explain those terminology for the HR person, right? But I do need to mention them.
Absolutely, exactly. So just like what Shanna mentioned, don't assume they don't know. That would be a very polite, that would be really rude actually if you say,
Yeah.
oh, let me explain that in case
Yeah.
you don't know. I mean, you could, but I would say it's better to assume that they do
No?
know.
Yeah.
And if they just wanted to ask you like, oh, can you elaborate? I don't actually get that term, then you can go ahead and explain.
Right.
But absolutely, just briefly mention it, and if there's time or if that person looks interested, you... Okay, good.
What do you